In a story told by Brene Brown in her book, Atlas of the Heart, she shares, I also had a really awful piano teacher who would shame and humiliate students. Because of my secret powers, I was never victimized by the teacher, but that wasn't enough. I could barely tolerate watching it happen to others, so I did my best to set the class up for success. One day, as I was showing my friend the scale we were working on, we both started giggling about something, probably how terrible I was at piano. The instructor went nuts and screamed, "Why are you laughing?" We didn't move a muscle. Finally, she said, "One of you is going to the principal's office. Who's it gonna be?" It only took me a couple of seconds to work out that my parents would be okay with my getting in trouble. But this girl had an older brother who was constantly in trouble. I had even seen her mom at the school crying and picking him up from the principal's office. So I shot straight up, me. She told me to sit back down and set her sights on the girl sitting next to me, who was trembling. I looked at her and said, "No, I will not sit down." It was me. She lost her mind. But I was never afraid. I marched down to the office, gave the principal's assistant my home phone number, and refused to talk to anyone until my parents arrived. I told my parents that I had to stand up for someone who was getting picked on and who was afraid. My dad had me moved out of piano, and we stopped for ice cream on the way home. He was proud of me for standing up to a bully. I was proud of myself for accurately predicting how everything would work out. But it wasn't a warm and fuzzy moment for me. The irony was too obvious. Maybe I couldn't actually predict the future, but I did have top-level observation powers. I understood that people would do almost anything to not feel pain, including causing pain and abusing power. And I understood that there were very few people who could handle being held accountable for causing hurt without rationalizing, blaming, or shutting down. What surprised me the most when I was growing up was how little other people seemed to understand or even think about the connection between feelings, thinking, and behavior. I remember often thinking, "Oh God, do you not see this coming?" I didn't feel smarter or better, just weirder and pained by the amount of hurt that we are capable of causing one another. The observation powers were partly survival and partly how I'm wired. Everyone, including me, seemed so desperate to feel more connected to their own lives and to one another, but no one was looking in the right places. No one was thinking about how it all works together. Everyone seemed disembodied from their own inner world and disconnected from other people. Too many lonely and secret lives.
I got a question this week about what this means. Gus, right? Gus, one of our youth, asked, "Why do people pump their fist at church?" This is the sign for yes in sign language. And you may know that already. And some people feel, and in our youth movement, they call it knocking in agreement, right? It comes out of Unitarian Universalist youth doing that. And some people appreciate it because it doesn't interrupt their chain of thought, or it stays silent like good Protestants from New England, appreciate. And I believe that preaching is an exchange between all of us, right? If it was just someone reading something or giving a lecture, it's entirely different. In fact, I was an accomplished public speaker before I became a minister, and boy, was it a lot of work to learn how different it is to preach than to give a speech. So for me, y'all can clap, y'all can whoop, you can knock. Let the Spirit move you, because it's an exchange between us. Last year, I was at the doctor for what I had previously been diagnosed 2 days before, as a sinus infection. But I was back at the doctor on a Thursday because it was much worse. And the nurse was interviewing me and asked how I was, and I responded, fine. And I thought, no, you are not fine. Miserable and much worse than Tuesday, I corrected myself. Why is the pressure so much to be fine that we automatically go to trite words of being fine, okay, or good? I have been trying to teach people to lead discussions with feelings words, and I know how hard it is to do. Now, I have long been one of those people, like what Brene Brown was talking about in that reading, who could kind of read a room and sense things. And in my capacity as a minister, I've been trained even more about using this superpower. And I will see people telling me that they are good and their body language, good, says otherwise. I will watch people darting their eyes away from those who are trying so hard to connect. I think, I wonder what's going on there. And then I watch more and see whose eyes they are avoiding, and I know something's up. I find people who want to avoid telling me how they feel will make beelines around me. Or they avoid picking up the phone even though I know they have it in their pocket and are not in a meeting. They text back instead. Little do they know, I read text fluently. I know what's going on. I know they are avoiding sharing their feelings. Sometimes in that avoiding sharing of feelings is when you say, I don't believe in gravity or nothing, right? It goes back to that like proclaiming, this is how it is. But if they said something about their feelings, we might learn a lot more and have an invitation for an exchange where we might get somewhere. I need to pause and come out about something to all of you. I avoided liking Brene Brown for years. I have this bias against liking anything that's popular. And then after her name kept coming up at seminary, and I kept avoiding her, I spent time going, oh my gosh, people I really admire like her. So I dove into the authenticity of her academic research and found that it was spot on and done with good standards. It held up to academic review. Fine. I was talking to my therapist one day and I shared that I had this bias and she said, me too. I learned then that my therapist goes through that same thing of not wanting to like something that's popular. And she also had that kind of arc with Brene Brown, that bias, right? And finally had to also admit that her research was well done. So today is like Brene Brown Day, with our whole service revolving around her latest book, Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience. I didn't even want to read that book. I was like, are you kidding me? A whole book where she describes what a feelings word is? Boring. That's wrong. Brown believes that the ability to name feelings makes a huge difference in your ability to have a deeply fulfilling, heart-centered, accomplished life. No kidding. Most people can only say they are good, happy, or angry. Oddly, any of those three emotions can be expressed as, I'm okay, I'm fine, or I'm okay. Three emotions, that's it, just three. Good, happy, angry. That's what most people boil their whole lives down into. Again, research. Your orders of service came with feelings wheel today, and I want you to take a look at those as we go through the service and think about a couple of words. Like guilt or guilty, for example, tells people that they did something bad, while shame tells you that you are something bad. The difference between envy and jealousy is that envy materializes when one wants something somebody else has, whether it's looks or status or wealth or an experience. While jealousy is the feeling that a relationship is being threatened. Hopelessness is a fleeting fear that a task is too difficult. And despair is a feeling that life is too difficult. Part of being Unitarian Universalist is being able to hold complexity. So I will constantly be bringing you back to complexity and how to hold it. Now I'm gonna give you an exercise some other time when we meet, and it'll be really fun, but today I won't. Why learn more about different emotions? We'll do it when we have a tea with Reb D for some time. Because people will do anything to avoid discomfort, we have to learn about different emotions. It is easier to refer to how things should be, or what the bylaw is, or what the direction said, or how we used to do it, rather than just saying, I feel confused, I feel hurt, I don't know what's going on. Maybe if we stop talking to people, rather than admit we really care about something and are furious and we think they wrecked it, we go into what's called cutoff. I just won't talk to them anymore. I will only say hi. If we had to admit our feelings, we might actually come together. But to do that would be a risk. So, to name your feelings takes, what's this month's theme? Courage. Brene Brown says, for children, it's easy for everything to become a source of shame when nothing is normalized. You assume if no one's talking about it, it must be just you. Now I, Reverend Denise Cawley, read that sentence and thought, did Brene Brown just get in my head? Because I have this bad habit of thinking that whenever I feel out of my power, when I am anxious or not centered, I think, must just be me. To get back into my power, I have to say, goodness, they have something going on there they're not saying. They are uncomfortable and are not sharing their feelings. This is not about me. This is about a person that does not want to articulate their feelings. But I go to that little girl that says, it must be me. I must have done something wrong. That's why they're acting that way. It's a child that goes to that. So if you go to that, this is your invitation to grow, to have courage. Brown continues, I understood that people would do almost anything to not feel pain, including causing pain and abusing power. And I understood that there were very few people who could handle being held accountable for causing hurt without rationalizing, blaming, cutting off, or shutting down. Yeah. Get out of my head, Brene. As a minister, I watch this happen to people who seek pastoral care, or even don't seek pastoral care. They join church committees and try to work out things. You see it at work too, right? They're trying to work out things without naming their feelings. They try to avoid sharing their feelings and instead go to that anger, that cutoff. They lose out on fun and great relationships. They lose out on having deeper humility, caring, and love. In our families, in our workplaces, in our world, we can see pain caused by the misuse of power. So we numb our pain and we lose track of our own power. We lose track of having that life force in us that could move to having deeper relationships. We become terrified of feeling pain. It doesn't matter what you numb with. You may be used to hearing that about drugs, but you can numb with shopping, with social media, with alcohol, sure, with drugs, with video games, with porn, and so much more. They are all results of behaviors that become a magnet for more pain. We run from anger and grief straight into the arms of fear, perfectionism, and a desperate need for control. For those of us on a journey to become more welcoming, more anti-racist, we learned that many of those words, perfectionism and using words that mean absolutes like best, fastest, quickest, and similar black and white words that mean that life cannot be seen as complex and multi-layered, but instead only seen as a contest where someone ends up on top and most of us suffer. Brown shares that when we stop numbing and we start feeling and learning again, we kind of have to reevaluate everything. Thanks a lot, Reb D. Thanks a lot. I come here to get inspired. I do not come here to work. When we stop numbing and start feeling and learning again, and we reevaluate everything, especially how we choose to love ourselves over making other people comfortable, right? I was having pastoral care with 2 people this week, and I heard that they had been working so hard to make other people comfortable that they made themselves miserable. It's the hardest work you will ever do. And it is worth it, my friends. It is so worth it to practice grace. I am born on Tuesday. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Did you ever hear that phrase? I had to go learn what it meant to be full of grace. Because grace means being courteous, means forgiving, means cutting some slack, means having goodwill toward others. It means, you often hear in our covenants, assume the best of intentions, right? It means extending compassion and love. In biblical references, to be full of grace means to be full of God. What would a God, in the sense of our all-loving God that our universalist ancestors believe in, what would they do? How would love proceed here? Could be up on your computer. How would love proceed here? That is what it means to be full of grace. It means to be filled up with God or love or benevolence. It is much easier to be filled up with love when the person you want to extend love to is stating their feelings rather than harsh directives, orders, or telling us how the world is or should be. If they say, "What a jerk, I can't believe they would buy coffee at the convenience store. The only good coffee comes from the fair trade organic place where they employ immigrants down the street. Well, it's actually across town, but they should have gone there. I can't believe they would do that and bring that to coffee hour." I'm not speaking to them, and I'm going to talk about them now at coffee hour when they are not around. You will see I use coffee as a Unitarian metaphor quite often. It's much different than saying, I feel really sad that you brought conventional coffee to our meeting. I wonder what it means. I wonder if it means that you don't care about our Earth. I am worried about our planet and I feel afraid of what the world is coming to. Well, gosh, I care about our Earth too, but I only had so much time and I thought Unitarians would riot if I didn't have some coffee there. The first one is frightening. The first one happens, I can't tell you, if the meeting goes silent, if the event goes silent because someone just gave one of those directive, harsh statements, there's no invitation there. You have to be wildly courageous to interrupt that. Ouch! Ouch! Woo! Did you get your coffee? Can we try that again? Can I call you back into covenant? Because the second one offers a chance to be pastoral and caring. The second one offers an in. There was wonder in it and curiosity. I wonder if that means that you don't care about the Earth. Now they have an opportunity to correct that, to share. This work that Brene Brown is sharing in this book is asking us to look at understanding our feelings in very complex ways in order to be a people of peace, curiosity, and kindness. It sure sounds like the covenant of this church. Running away from the pain and anxiety is much more risky than leaning in and figuring it out. It takes much more courage. I'm encouraging you to lean into courage by stating your feelings. State your opinions not like facts, but with feelings words. Well, I really think gravity is a good idea, and I feel pretty excited about gravity. How do you feel? Give yourselves permission to have messy conversations. You can say, goodness, I don't know what to say right now, but I feel uncomfortable. So often we think we have to have the perfect thing to say, the perfect right thing. Just state your feeling. Whew, I feel a little nervous right now. There's somewhere to go then. This is a map. I feel worried. I'm excited about this. I'm afraid. Some of us grew up in families where cutoff was really common. If they didn't like what you did, they would stop speaking to you. For years even. We sometimes see that in people who quit church. Rather than go directly to someone and express fears or even wonder and curiosity about what the person did, they just stopped going. They quit. And we Unitarian Universalists, we are lovers of leaving. You were not perfect. I'm out of here. It's how a lot of us got here, right? Brown goes on and says, I learned that when you hold someone accountable for hurtful behaviors and they feel shame, that's not the same as shaming someone. I am responsible for holding you accountable in a respectful and productive way. I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction to that accountability. Some of you may struggle with asking people to help. I'm not going to ask them because if I ask them, they might feel guilty. They might say no. That's not your problem. You can say, I have a great opportunity that I think would help you grow and deepen, and I'd love to have you join me on this because I think it'll make your life better. Is that something you're interested in? Do you have capacity for that? Could I break that down so that you could help? And if they say no, it's not about you. She says, I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction to that accountability. And sadly, I've learned that sometimes, even when the pain takes your breath away, you must let people you love experience the consequences of their own behavior. And that one really hurts. Me speaking here, we are in a time of change in our faith and in our world and in this congregation. And last week I started to introduce you to the concept of liminal, that space in between. It is one where we might so desperately want to move on to what's next that we miss out on stopping and feeling. If we don't stop and figure out how we feel, we miss out on the learning. And if we skip that step, we just repeat it over and over. A few of you know I have a Bowen systems theory coach. And Bowen theory resources are usually applied in psychology to families, but there's a whole huge area of study that's been developed by congregational leaders that recognize how patterns we see in family structures are very similar to behaviors that are exhibited in congregations. Any group that works together a lot, you can see these same behaviors in. And one of the markers for a well-differentiated person is remaining non-anxious in difficult situations. And I'm just going to add that people who can remain non-anxious in difficult situations do a lot of spiritual practices, even pathetically. This instruction feels like a command to love thy neighbor, easy to say, hard to do. And being told to remain non-anxious sounds good, but can be difficult to manage depending on your feelings. But stating a feeling is a way to go to that next step when you don't know what to say. The path to bringing calm to any situation is to being able to name your feeling with greater precision. You want to get good at stuff? You want to play with that perfectionism? Fine. Learn the difference between all those different feelings on that wheel. If you can name and then share what you are feeling, others have a chance to react to that. If you hear someone angrily say, I think this meeting is a bunch of malarkey. I think you are being ridiculous and I think you should know better. The meeting will stop. The family gathering will end. The faces will all go. Everyone studies their shoes in that moment. There isn't much you can say after that to bring people back to love, can you? But if you heard someone in the same situation say, I feel really hurt. I am worried about doing a good job for everyone. I feel a lot of pressure to get it right. Now that you can react to, you can partner with. The first thing you can do is say, I'm so sorry you feel hurt. Which does not mean that you made them feel hurt. You're acknowledging how they feel. I can imagine it's challenging to do good work when you are worried and feeling pressure. You're just going to repeat back to them what they said they feel. Leading with feelings changes everything, and Brown reminds us that very few people can handle being held accountable without rationalizing, blaming, or shutting down. Without understanding how our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors work together, it's almost impossible to find our way back to ourselves and to each other. And when we don't understand how our emotions shape our thoughts and decisions, we become disembodied from our own experiences. It's their fault, it happens to them, you're like not there. How many of us have heard people do that? Right? There's certain people, everything in the whole world is somebody else's fault. They had nothing to do with any of it. It all just happens. Humans are wildly complex. They are quilts of emotions and experiences, and having a better palette to describe our emotions means we have a portal to make meaning. We better can connect our feelings with words to describe them, and the more we are able to move productively throughout the world, the more grace we can demonstrate. Language is our portal to meaning making, to connection, to healing, to learning and self-awareness. So having a depth to draw from of accurate words to describe specific emotions makes us better able to identify those emotions in others, as well as to recognize and manage emotional experiences when we feel them. For the next family gathering or meeting you attend, you could walk around with your feelings wheel, cut it out, put it in your wallet, tape it to your desk, pass them out, download one to your phone. We've joked at my house that we're gonna get them tattooed on our arms. Right? This little tool is there for you to get through messy situations, and it could be a spiritual practice every day to put this inside your bathroom cabinet and name a feeling you are experiencing that day. And remember, in naming the feelings, you can experience that loving grace, that all-loving God feeling. And I realize for some of us, this is a learning edge. It's a new way to be, but you will not regret how that grace will feel. And with that, you can experience real love, gritty, dangerous, wild-eyed, justice-seeking love. Understanding those feelings brings grace and clarity, my friends.